Okay, so welcome everybody. This presentation is about Anaconda Code, but separately a little bit about Anaconda Toolbox as well. And I just want to set some expectations for the presentation. It's not a formal Anaconda sponsored presentation. This is just for my meetup group. I took the initiative to give this presentation because I thought it would be interesting to the Excel community, and that's pretty much it. So it's very informal. You can come off camera, you can put your camera on or off, mic on or off. It's entirely up to you. Just to make sure that we don't have a lot of overlap and people speaking, I will go through each section, and then at various points I will ask for questions. I will also try to keep an eye on the chat. But other than that, let's just chat. It's going to be informal. I'll see if I can spark some ideas for you. So this presentation is Introduction to Anaconda Code. So first of all, I want to just make something clear. Anaconda Code is a feature, it's a button that you get installed when you install this add-in, Anaconda Toolbox for Excel. This is an Office add-in, and when we say it's an Office add-in, it means you install it from the add-ins button of the ribbon. You don't have to download any files. You don't have to put anything on your computer. You just install it in Excel, and away you go. So no download required. It's compatible with Windows, Mac, and web. Although I will say that there are some development limitations of the web experience, which force some limitations on the use of Anaconda Toolbox. So the best experience you're going to have is in Windows and Mac. Although it is usable in web, it's better in Windows and Mac. And you install it from the add-ins button on the home tab of the ribbon. So just a very brief overview of the features of the toolbox. You have this feature called Visualize with Python, which is basically a point-and-click interface which helps you to create Python charts. Anaconda Assistant, which is an AI chat interface. And by the way, you will find that when you install it, you will need to create an account to log in. And the primary reason for needing to create an account is because of Anaconda Assistant. Obviously, that's sending your chat messages, your prompts to an LLM, but also in order to manage that service, there are usage limits based on the tier of account that you get. So you can get a free account, and it gives you a certain number of usage credits for the assistant per day. The higher tiers give you more credits. So that is the primary reason why you need to log in at the moment. But again, the account is free, and if you have an education account, you get a free account, but it's at the starter tier, so it has more features and so on. And if anyone's got any question about those tiers, I can answer them later. Data sets and code snippets, and these two allow you to take your Excel data and save it into your Anaconda account, and then you can open another Excel file, and your data set will be there available for you. Toolbox. Similarly, with code snippets, you can save your favorite code. It's kind of like a gist interface, but it saves it to the Toolbox account for your login, so that if you then go to another file and you open it, your code snippets will be there for you to import into your other file. And then it has Anaconda Code, which is hopefully why you're all here. And that involves a local environment. It lets you install packages. We now have Python and R, which is R is the big update that we made in the last week. And there is much, much more. So the majority of what I'll talk about is Anaconda Code, but we will briefly talk about Anaconda Assistant as well, because I think that's interesting. I can show the page, the pricing page, and I can show you the difference between the paid and free tiers in a moment. Okay, so what's required? I've already spoken about this. You need Excel, you need one of these. You need a free Anaconda account. Let me just open it now, and I'll show you what that means. That will answer Brian's question. So you can get a free one, which is likely what most people will do. There's a starter tier, which includes an increased limit of shareable cloud-hosted notebooks. You do get 5 gigabytes with the free tier. With the starter tier, you get 10 gigabytes plus a load of training courses, and it has more features basically. And then business tier, obviously, and enterprise are going to be those enterprise-ready features. If you have an academic account, which is a .edu or other equivalent academic account, it's free, but you get the features from the starter tier. Okay. So there are, I can show you the limits on there's the AI assistant, the request limits are here. So Anaconda, Anaconda account isn't just about logging into Anaconda Toolbox. It also gives you access to cloud notebooks for doing your data science projects. I don't want to get too much into that because that's not the area of expertise. The free plan is totally enough to get started. In fact, you can use everything in Toolbox for free. There are no limits on what you can do with Anaconda Code based on the tier. The only limits that you will see in the Toolbox are number of requests that you can have per day for the assistant. Okay, so that really is it for the slides. You'll be pleased to hear. I'm certainly pleased to hear it because I do not like producing slides. Let us go to Excel and we'll get started by talking about Anaconda Assistant. So first of all, when you install Anaconda Toolbox, you go to the add-ins button, the ribbon, and here you search for Anaconda. There it is. You select that, and then you will click install, and it will install very, very quickly. And then on the formulas tab of the ribbon, you will see Toolbox and Code under this Anaconda button group. The assistant is in the Toolbox. And you can see the tools that I just mentioned. Maybe there's a room for another presentation some other time about the other tools, but for now, let's just look at the assistant. Okay, so when you open the assistant, it gives you some getting started prompts. And the assistant in Toolbox is primarily, and the Toolbox generally, the initial purpose of it was to help people get more value out of Python and Excel more quickly. So most of the tools in here at the moment are geared towards Python. Now, we recently added R, and we're discussing how to change the assistant experience to help more directly with R. I mean, it is just an LLM, so you can say, give me some R code. You can say, give me some JavaScript code or whatever you want. But these buttons are really geared towards Python. So let's just have a look at what they do. So let's say aggregate or summarize a table or range. And it's a very simple interface. Choose your input. And now I've got some data from AdventureWorks in this workbook. So I can select one of the tables to work with. What it's going to do is it's going to look at the data and then give me some suggestions. So let's say calculate the total sales amount, tax amount, and freight by sales territory. So I just type 1. And writes the code for me, as you may be familiar with. And then just pressing this play button, what that does, I can select a cell. And then when I press OK, what it's going to do is going to inject a Python cell into that cell containing this code. Now, by default, you will notice that it is using Python in Excel. So it's put an equals py formula here. And it's put the code in there, including the comments. And it's spilled the results to the grid. So that was a very easy way to get a summary of that table. Now, of course, you can do it with Power Query. You can do it with the group by function. There's lots of ways you can do it. That's not the point of the demonstration. The point is you select a table, you can either type a prompt or choose one of the options. You can press play and get your Python cell. So that's one of the ways that you can use it. Another way, let's go back, new chat, let's say generate graphs. Use the same table, back to internet sales, and it's going to give me some suggestions. Oh, I'm sorry if the audio is fading in and out. I'm trying for that not to happen. Okay, so it's given me some suggestions. Let's say time series plot of sales amount over order date. And again, it is going to write some code. And when I insert the code into the cell, create a Python cell. I press play, select my cell, and it will create a Python cell with that code. So obviously, if you're familiar with Python and Excel, you'll know that when it returns an image, it returns the image inside the cell. So you have options here. You can either make it bigger, make the cell bigger, like that, or you can do Carlos's favorite thing, which is to merge, like that. Or you can hit this button, and the button will create a floating image, and the image has a reference to the cell that contains the chart. Okay, so that is how images are returned in Python and Excel. It also happens to be how images are returned in Anaconda Code. So thus far, Assistant has been creating code with the equals py function. We can change it to create code using Anaconda Code, which is to say to not use Python and Excel. And we can do that by going to the settings in the toolbox, changing this to this setting. So when we create Python code in Python and Excel, we type equals py. When we use Anaconda Code, it uses this Anaconda.code function. So if I change that to Anaconda Code and come back to the assistant, if I were to repeat this, when I create the cell, it would not create a Python cell, it would create an Anaconda Code cell. But I'm not going to do that immediately. Okay, so I'm about to switch over to a different topic. Does anyone have any questions about the assistant? And you can unmute yourself and just chat, or you can put them in the chat if you want.
I'll raise my hand. I'll be formal. Raise my hand. The one thing that I do is just undock it. You know, like same thing with the pivot tables. You know, undock it. So it is possible to make it bigger. Sometimes making it bigger, adjust the code of the width of the code, and that helps sometimes either to make the code a bit more vertical and a bit more, you know,
right.
Yeah, that helps sometimes, or sometimes. So I just wanted to leave that because many people just leave it dock and they make it bigger if they need to. Also, if you're working with two computers, you can make your other monitor to be vertical.
Yeah.
Or if it can be vertical, switch it, and then put this pane, or however you call it, this window, into that monitor and see the code, maybe the complete code, because this one is right now it's short.
Exactly. I used to have a vertically oriented monitor, and I would do that sometimes, drag the window into the other screen. You just have to do it slowly because Windows is a bit funny like that. But yeah, great point. You can undock it. You can put it on the left. You can just have it floating. I'm going to leave it over here just so that I don't get confused, because I get confused quite easily. But thank you, Carlos. Sean?
Yeah, fascinating stuff, Owen. With your audio, it's tolerable, so thanks for trying to get that better. Two questions. With the assistant, can you specify which columns? So it looks like when you're building these graphs that it's using most, if not all, the columns, unless I didn't read through all the options. Okay, so you can specify that right in the assistant?
So you can instead of selecting a table, you can choose a range, and then you can just do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a table either. It can just be any data anywhere in the spreadsheet. But of course, if you select an empty range, the assistant will just tell you, I don't see any data there. Can you try again?
Understood. Great. And then is there an ideal amount of rows that is, like, when does it get to be too many rows, too much content? Or is that depending on the CPU and computer and whatnot?
I think it very much depends on whether you're using Python in Excel or whether you're using Anaconda Code. So Python in Excel currently has a limitation of 100 megabytes for each data set that you send in a Python cell. So that's either a lot of rows with few columns, or it's a lot of columns with few rows, or somewhere in between. With Anaconda Code, the limitations, I haven't met any limitations yet, but the limitations are really determined by your computer, because everything happens locally in Anaconda Code, and anything that you load into memory in Anaconda Code is going to appear as memory being consumed by Excel. So if you try to load a massive amount of data, then that's what will happen. But I haven't met any limits myself.
Very cool. Thank you.
Brian?
Owen, I'll go after Brian.
Okay.
Hey, Owen, it's Brian. I was just wondering, what's the LLM that's sitting under Anaconda Assistant?
To be totally honest, it changes from time to time, but I think originally it was
OpenAI, and now it's Claude.
Oh, hi, Jim. Yeah,
Hey, yeah.
I was about to say that. It was OpenAI, it's now Claude.
And is it the Claude extended thinking? So is it really, when you're asking it for code, is it running it through the big model?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, thanks.
By the way, everybody, if you hear Jim speaking, he's the most knowledgeable person about this toolbox because he built it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you have any detailed questions, I'm here. I'm the lead engineer, so I can answer all the nitty-gritty details. But Owen's better at presenting content, so we'll leave him to that.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, hello, Jim, and Brian as well. So yeah, you talk about limits. Were you referring to data? That will be the first question. Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you something. Can we run anything Anaconda Code with Power Query in connection? I mean, in connection mode, meaning maybe that Power Query is hosting more than 1 million rows, and run it, or
so anything you can do with the toolbox. If you're creating equals py cells, it will be able to do anything that Python and Excel can do. So yes, for the toolbox in py mode. But actually, Jim and I were talking about connection only mode for Anaconda Code yesterday, and no, at the moment is the answer to that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, because at the beginning also, I haven't tested again. Sorry, I've been a bit rusty with Python. But I remember it was working, but then it got buggy. But then I think it got working again with a Power Query in connection mode. Okay. All right. Okay. Good.
Yeah. Brian, do you have another question? Because your hand is up again. I don't know whether it's just that it didn't come down or.
No, I think I didn't know I had to take it down.
Okay, no worries.
There we go.
Aditya.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Hey, Owen. So one thing I was going to tell was, so I was also testing that in connection mode with Python. So it gave me like 10,000 rows properly, but when I went for like 1 million rows in connection mode, Python in Excel really broke out then. So it wasn't giving me proper results at that moment. I don't know. I haven't tested much with Anaconda. So I'm pretty excited if it can handle, if it can bring that Power Query data, then I don't have to load, right? The data in my
so
Excel.
So just to be clear, Anaconda Code cannot use connection only queries.
Okay.
However,
Got it.
What Anaconda Code can do is connect to external APIs and pull the data directly into the data frame, which means it wouldn't use Power Query at all. So in that case, there is no limit to the number. The limit of the number of rows in your data frame is really determined by the memory available to you.
But what if my data is in CSV files, right? So
if your data is in CSV, yep. If your data are in CSV files and you've got a huge file, and you don't want to spill it as a table in your spreadsheet, my recommendation would be, no, I can't 100% say this will work, but my recommendation would be put it in a private gist, then generate some Python code to connect and download from that gist.
Okay. Okay. Nice idea. Thank you.
Another question, Carlos.
Yeah, last question.
That's all right.
Data model. Can I access the data model inside,
No.
I mean, Power Pivot?
No.
No, not yet. Okay.
No.
Maybe in the future?
Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't hold your breath for that one.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk about Assistant anymore. I do encourage you, if you want, just play around with the different tools here. We love feedback, and I think we're in a good place with these tools. So next we're going to talk about Anaconda Code. So let's close the toolbox. I'm going to get rid of this Python cell, and again, formulas, and we open the code here. This has skipped some steps. So when you open it, you will see this Get Started screen, and it allows you to, if you're brand new to the program, to choose which language you prefer. Isolated mode and linked mode I will explain in some detail in a moment. And then if you're used to Python and Excel, you will know that there are two different output modes, which are values where the data spills to the grid, and object mode. And object mode just shows you a representation of the object in a single cell, but still contains the data. So we have something similar in Anaconda Code, and the default is Excel values, but of course you can change that. So one of the big benefits, now I don't want to talk about Python and Excel anymore because that's not the purpose of the presentation. And I don't really want to draw comparisons because I think both of these tools have value. But talking about Anaconda Code, customizable environment. So first of all, you can either hit this button or you can come over to this environment tab. And this is your Python environment. We pre-install these 5 libraries. And you can add libraries as well. So first of all, let's load the environment. In fact, no, first of all, let's edit the environment to add a library. So let's say there are 3 ways to add libraries. Actually 4 ways. If you hit add, bring you to this screen, and this screen lists the 230 packages that are in the Pyodide distribution. Pyodide is the technology that we use to run Python in a web page. And these add-ins, these Office add-ins, this thing that you're looking at here, this is a web page. And the environment runs in this web page because of Pyodide. And Pyodide has some limitations as to which packages you can use. Basically, if a Python package includes compiled non-Python code, so if it includes compiled C code, for example, and it hasn't been packaged for Pyodide, then you'll find that you can't use it in Anaconda Code. So you can install any one of these 230 libraries. Alternatively, you can go to the Python package index, maybe you're familiar with, and you can search for a library that you want. So somebody give me a library name, Jim, maybe.
I don't know, search for awkward. Although that one might be compiled, but
okay, don't worry.
Pecker,
well, it doesn't matter, does it?
Pecker.
Awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So you can search Python package index, and now we list everything that matches your search, whether it's compatible with Pyodide or not. The reason that we do that is because if we wanted to check every single library to see whether it was compatible, it would be quite an expensive operation. We would need to maintain a separate database. We would need to be basically polling the Python package index every day to figure out if there are any changes. So instead, this is a live lookup. As such, you might see listed here libraries that are not compatible. you can try to load them, and it will be successful if it's compatible, and if it's not, then when you, this one apparently is. Oh, this one is not compatible. It's disappeared. So that's one way. You can use these are guaranteed Python iodide packages. So the best place to start is here. You can then try the package index if you can't find it there. If you have a custom pure Python wheel, I'm not going to explain what that means because I don't think I would get it right. And you know that you have a pure Python wheel, then it is likely compatible with Pyodide, and you can install it from your custom URL. Or you can install a Pyscript app, and I'm going to explain what that means in a moment. But before we talk about that, let's talk about something else. So I want to talk about link mode. In Python and Excel, all Python cells are connected to each other. That's why you can create a data frame in cell A1, and in cell C3, you can refer to that data frame by name. They're all connected to each other. So if you create long workflows, when you recalculate one Python cell, they will all recalculate. Now, you may want that, or you may not want that. That's the default mode in Excel. The reason for that is very good reason, and that is that the Excel team want your data to always be up to date, no matter what. However, if you have long workflows, it can get quite slow to calculate. So we have our default mode is actually isolated, and isolated mode means create a cell. Isolated mode means if I create a variable in one cell, so I'm going to create X in this cell. Oh, it's initializing the environment. So this is happening on the first time I run a cell because I haven't loaded the environment yet. So once this is loaded, this won't happen every time. I missed something. It used to be taking a long time.
Yeah, I wonder if the environment got messed up with the awkward package.
It might. Okay.
Yeah.
This is awkward.
Everything happens live. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, there it's going.
Yeah, it's going now. Okay, so it's running imports and definitions, which I'm realizing I should have shown you first, but we'll talk about isolated mode. So I've created a cell with x equals 2, and that's created a variable in that cell called x. Now, if I create another cell here, in cell AB4, if I try to refer to x from this cell, because this cell and AB2 are both in isolated mode, they can't see each other. Okay, so if I try to refer to x here, I'm going to get an error because x is not defined. So that's because it cannot see x from this cell. So it's almost like when a cell is isolated, it exists in its own notebook, its own environment almost. And all the variables in that environment are not accessible to the other cells. If you want them to be accessible, you can change the link mode of the cell. So this is the link mode, and I can change it to linked, rerun it. And I need to change this one to linked as well. And when I rerun it, now this one has access to X because these two are now linked. So all cells that are in linked mode, all cells that are linked together have access to each other's variables, and they calculate in row major order. So from the top left to the bottom right. That is link mode. So if you want your cells to access one another, they can do that. The other option that you have is, I'll put them back in isolated mode. If you want more fine-grained control over how data are being accessed, you can create a reference. And to create a reference, you hit this ref button. You can type it. So I want to reference cell AB2 from cell AB4. Okay, so that has now returned the output of cell AB2. And because this is the last line, I mean, it's the only line, because this is the last line, then when I reference that cell, it returns that value. Now in this cell, I can then optionally reassign it to X and say like X squared. Okay, so there are two ways to connect cells. You can either put them in link mode or you can use this referencing mechanic. Referencing gives you more control. Link mode is perhaps easier, but you just need to be aware that when you're in link mode, whenever one recalculates, they will all recalculate. So, something to be aware of. Just to show you what output mode means, when I change it to code object, I think actually when it's a simple value like this, it will just show the number. If it was something more complex, like a list of lists. If it was a list of lists, object mode, it's going to show me this list of lists icon. So the list of lists exists in that cell, and if I reference it from here, I'm actually assigning to X the list of lists. Okay. So that's how referencing works. And if I change the output to code object here, it's the same thing. Okay, let's just pause for a second. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, and on just a second ago, when you spelled the data frame, it was still referring to AB2 without the, I mean, doesn't need the hash. I mean, we forget about dynamic arrays here, right? We just focused on the.
Yeah, it spills a dynamic array because it's a two-dimensional object. A list of lists essentially represents columns and rows. Because it's a two-dimensional object, we're basically saying get the object from cell AB2, and the object in cell AB2 is a list of lists. We return it, it spills because it's a dynamic array. It's the same as if you had a name in a let variable.
Right, but that result is a spill range in that case.
Yes. So if you want to now use it in a formula, you can say like, you can use it in the same way. So.
Yeah.
These
are possibilities, you know.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you can connect your tables to Python, spill the result from Python, and then use a formula to continue the workflow. And as we'll see in a moment, you'll be able to use R in the mix as well. Okay, any other questions before I move on to the next?
Oh, and do you want to mention that the ref mechanism works for non-Python things as well?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Similar to the Python and Excel function.
Apologies, yes, you're absolutely right. So we can refer to other Anaconda code cells, but ref is not just about, is actually principally not about that. It's about referencing anything, any cell, no matter what it contains. It just, if it happens to contain a code object, embedded code object, then it will return that code object. But if I, for example, to return this, fact internet sales, I do this ref, then doing so, let me put it in code object mode. What that has done, because it's about 65,000 rows and 26 columns. So the default return value for ref is a list of lists, basically columns and rows. Okay, this is not the same as Python and Excel. Python and Excel returns a data frame by default. We went for a list of lists because we want the user to be able to choose what to do. So if I do this, you'll be able to see a preview of the list of lists. Now, if I want to change that into a data frame, we have provided some helper functions. So if you look in imports and definitions, we've provided these functions. To_df takes a list of lists and converts it into a data frame. To_array converts it into an array, and to_list will flatten it into a single list. So a very common workflow in Anaconda code will be let's put to_df around this. Okay, so that's taking the list of lists and converting it into a data frame. When we rerun that, this will now say data frame. Okay, so it says pandas data frame. And if I change it to spill, let's not do that actually. Let's say let's just spill the first few rows. So anything, this is now a data frame, and anything, any dot methods that you use after it are data frame methods. So that will again return a data frame. I should have changed this first. Okay, so I'm spilling the first 5 rows. Okay, so that's spilled the head of the data frame. And of course, I can do any kind of grouping, visualization, anything that I want with my data now that it's in that data frame. Okay, so I'll keep that in isolated mode. Now, if I want to change anything in this cell here, because they're both isolated, any changes I make here will not recalculate this one. That's probably a better example because you saw that it took a few seconds to load the 65,000 rows and 26 columns into that data frame. It took a few seconds. So I don't want that to reload every time I change this cell and whatever I'm doing here, which is completely unrelated. Okay, so you can refer to tables, you can refer to ranges, you can refer to query tables on other sheets, single values, whatever you want. Ref function is there to do that. If it's a 2-dimensional range that you pass into the ref function, it will return a list of lists. If it is a single value, Jim will correct me if I'm wrong. If it's a single value, it will just return the scalar of that value, so integer, string, whatever it may be. Okay, so you can see you've got preview in the logs here as well. Okay, Aditya, you have a question.
So on what might happen, I was playing with something like, what if I split, let's say I have got a column with full name and I want to split it with 2 columns, right?
Yeah.
First name and last name without assigning the columns. Okay, so it will first convert it in a nested list. So normally in Python, in Excel, what happens is it gives me calc error because there is a nested structure. What would happen with this one, Anaconda code?
You mean if you spill it?
Yeah.
So if you try to spill a data frame column that contains a nested list, I believe it will. You know, I've never tried. Maybe if we have time at the end
as well.
It will show a calc error. Okay.
Yeah, we can't spill. Yeah, we try to handle most common things, but yeah, we can't handle any arbitrary thing spilling to grid.
Yeah, so you would need to do the expand parameter of your split operation in order to make it into separate columns, or explode to change it into rows. Okay. Now I'll go back to the imports and definitions because that's what I should have showed you at the beginning. So we looked at the environment. I showed you the different ways that you can add things to the environment. And we will look at R, don't worry, if you've come here to look at R. The environment, the imports and definitions, this is a script that runs once when the environment is loaded. So if you define any functions or if you do any imports, it's best to put them in the imports and definitions script. Further, if you're defining any dummy data, so if you're like hard coding data into a data frame, you can assign it in here as well. And then the data frame, when it's assigned in here, it's available to every cell that you create. regardless of link status. So if you want to create a dummy data frame, do it in the imports and definitions, and then you can refer to it elsewhere. We provide these functions just as a convenience for you to convert lists of lists into different things. You can find your own functions, put a little section here for you to define them, but you can put them anywhere. And these imports are here because they're quite commonly used. You can remove them or add additional imports. Of course, if you add libraries to your environment, if you want to use them, you need to import them as well. So if I were to write some Seaborn code, it wouldn't work because I haven't imported it. So I would just need to edit this, import Seaborn as SNS, and then when I rerun it, it will rerun the imports and definitions, and then SNS will be available to be used in any cell. So that's the Python environment imports and definitions. We have this jump to, which if you've got a lot of functions defined in here, then you can just quickly jump to the function that you want to see. Let us go over to the R environment. So you can switch language here. The R environment is currently not started because we haven't used it yet. These are the default libraries in the R environment: JSON Lite, Sloop. I actually don't know what Sloop does. Tidyverse was my recommendation. That has all the good stuff like ggplot2 and dplyr and stuff like that. So you can edit the WebR environment in a similar way to the Python environment. WebR is the technology that allows us to run R in a browser. Again, an Office add-in is a browser page that is hosted and run locally in your Excel instance. So WebR enables R in a browser. It's simpler to edit the WebR environment because the R community have been very, I guess they've paid a lot of attention to WebR basically. So you can see there are nearly 21,500 libraries to choose from. And pretty much anything that you want to find in R, you will find in this add packages page, and you can add it and use it in Anaconda Code. So in that way, the R environment is almost more complete and more usable than the Python environment. Still, the Python environment contains the majority of the most popular packages. Now, if you've got Tidyverse loaded, that comes with ggplot2 built in, so you don't need to load it separately. When you hit save changes, it will load the R environment. I won't do that just yet. Or you can load it here. You can put your library statements here, create any functions that you want to create. We've got 2 data frames similarly, so that you can convert your ref return value into a data frame. By default, we've got this as tibble to return a tidyverse tibble instead of a data frame. You can set it to false and it will return a data.frame. Matrix, callwise list, and check if it's a list of lists. So those are some default functions that we provide for convenience. I am about to go to different topic altogether, which is going to be more interesting. So if there are any questions about the basic functionality, now is the time. Anyone got any questions?
Hey, Owen, this is Brian.
Hi.
I had a question with regard to the R packages. So I've been able to get the Python in Anaconda Code to call APIs beautifully. But whenever I try to do it in R, it gives me a dependency to the header program, HTTR, the header package called curl that it can't seem to resolve.
Curl is not converted into WebR yet.
Okay. And so
you'll need to find some other way.
Is there a way, have you found another package around it that works around that without curl? I have not been able to do that yet. I'm wondering if you guys have found a workaround for that.
I haven't, but it is certainly something that I want to do. I haven't really looked into it too deeply. I've been quite busy since we launched this. But yeah, if you go to the WebR, there's a website that shows you all the packages that have been converted to WebR, and it will show you a list of the packages that are completely converted, and there are some that are partially converted. And if you look at the list of partially converted packages, it shows you all the dependencies.
Yep.
In most of them, where it's only partially converted, the reason is because curl has not been converted. So it's not to say that that package doesn't work altogether. It just means that the features that rely on curl will not work. It's Jim has posted the link.
Yeah, I think WebAssembly still is like single-threaded. And I think it might be that curl is multi-threaded and they haven't figured out how to change that. But that is probably the biggest thing that's still lacking from WebR is curl.
Okay. That's, as I said, it works great through Python, but I'll definitely look around and see if there's a way around without using curl.
And curl is somewhat of a new project, like 1 or 2 years old, so it might get fixed here soon. But you can definitely raise the issue on their issue tracker and see how, like, I don't know the technical details of how hard it is to get that working, but
okay,
they know about it.
Okay, let's switch gears. We're going to go over to Pyscript.com now. And I really think you're going to like this because I slept on it for a while and didn't really give it the attention that it needed. And then once I started giving it the attention that it needed, I realized what a masterstroke of Jim's it was. But Pyscript.com is a website and service that is provided by Anaconda. And it allows you to create web applications with Python. Pyscript, Pyodide, which I mentioned earlier, correct my language if I'm wrong here, Jim. Pyodide is based on Pyscript.
Other way around. Pyscript is a wrapper around Pyodide.
Okay, Pyscript is a wrapper around Pyodide. And Pyscript is what allows you to create tags in your HTML page that will execute Python in your web page. All of this stuff together enables Anaconda Code. But a separate project that Anaconda has is called Pyscript.com. While Pyscript itself is an open source project, Pyscript.com is a service provided by Anaconda. And you can log into Pyscript.com and use it with the same credentials that you would use for Anaconda Code and Anaconda Toolbox. You can see I'm logged in with my my credentials here. So what you can do, where are the examples? I always get lost. Where are the examples? I'll forget the examples. Okay, so what you can do is you can create a new project. Oh, they are. So it allows you to, let's say, it allows you to use Python to create web applications and essentially create websites with Python libraries. This one example, this bouquet, is a data visualization library that is also heavily maintained by Anaconda. It has lots of cool features. But this is all running in a browser, and this is actually a website. Okay, so running Python in a website is super powerful. If you know Python and you don't want to learn a lot of JavaScript, it's a great place to be. However, the reason I want to talk about it is not because of creating websites with Python. It's because we can create libraries of user-defined functions for Anaconda Code and share them with people. But let me slip back into Anaconda Code and give you some context around why that's important. Go back to Python because that's what I'm most familiar with. In fact, let me look for something here. Anaconda Code UDF melt. So there's a blog post that I wrote and we published on the website. You can see here that there's a function that is a user-defined function which uses pandas dataframe.melt to unpivot a data frame. And this is how you define a user-defined function for Anaconda Code. So I'm going to copy this code, copy it from there, I guess. And I'm going to bring it into my imports and definitions here. Okay. So this is now a Python function. This highlighted part, unpivot data, is a Python function. Let's make it a bit bigger. Okay, so all it is it's taking a range, some ID variables, a variable name, a value name, and it's returning a range. So the first thing I'm doing is converting that list of lists, which will be, the data will be a list of lists, into a data frame. And then I'm using dataframe.melt, which is a very, very, very useful function from pandas to unpivot the data frame. Now, just on its own, I could reference and use unpivot data in a Anaconda Code cell, and it would return the data in the way that I've shown you earlier. However, if I use this decorator at UDF, I convert this code into an Excel user-defined function, and I give it the name unpivot. Explain what nested.false means in just a moment. So when I run this, it's going to register this function as an Excel user-defined function. That's done. Let's find a simpler table to demonstrate it with. Let's use product category. Okay, so product category is perhaps not the best data to unpivot, but I'm going to show you anyway. I've got some columns, and I want to unpivot this table. But now I've got my Python UDF. Okay, so I can just type unpivot, and I can select the data. Select equals Control A is problematic at the moment for some reason. Okay, so unpivot, and the ID vars. I don't have to use ID vars. You need to use ID vars. So the columns I want to keep fixed will be. I'm realizing this is not a good example. Let's see if it works with an empty list. See if it works without it. It doesn't work. Okay. Should be better prepared. Product category key. I'm just going to give it a column. And what it has done is it has unpivoted. This is not a great example, I admit, but it has unpivoted this table while keeping this column fixed. And you may have seen an unpivot lambda function and seen how complicated it is to get right. This is all you need to create an unpivot Excel function. So not only can you put single value here, you can that's not going to work, is it? Because that's Python code. Okay, I'm getting it wrong because I haven't used this in a while. But, hopefully you understand the point. Is that you can register Python functions as worksheet functions. So if I were to remove this, all of this stuff here, default is that it uses the function name as the spreadsheet function name. And the default is also that it prefixes it with Anaconda, just to keep your namespaces clean. So that would be the default value, default function name. And you can set the name be something else in the UDF decorator. So I'm going to set it to be unpivot because that's more intuitive. If I don't use nested equals false, it will still name it Anaconda dot whatever name you've given it. So Anaconda dot unpivot is the name now. And if I want to get rid of that Anaconda thing, I can change this to nested equals false, and it will remove that name nesting. Now it's just unpivot. And of course, if I want to nest it with my own name, say, I can just put it there. Okay. So Owen.unpivot. Okay, so that's the basics, a really basic user-defined function. The reason I wanted to show you that before continuing with Pyscript is Pyscript allows us to create libraries of these functions. I have seen my post around this technical analysis dashboard. In this project, by the way, this is public, and you can go to this page yourself and read through this tutorial, and it will tell you how to do all of this. But in this project, I have defined, I've got a Python file, and the Python file contains definitions of user-defined functions that I want to use in Anaconda Code. So we'll ignore 2DF, I just need that for reference. Within this Python file, I've got this register UDFs function. That is a container into which I will put my user-defined function. So this example is technical analysis. I've explained how this UDF decorator works. This is the only function that I've got in here. But in my, if I wanted to, I could add as many user-defined functions inside this register UDFs function as I want. And then I will be able to import all of this into Anaconda Code and use these user-defined functions in any workbook that I want. And I will be able to share them with other people. They will be able to import them exactly as if it were a library. I'll show you how that works now. So once you've created your Pyscript project, you go through the tutorial, you will see that you need to change this to export equals true in this toml file in order to make this export.zip. And this export.zip is what goes into Anaconda Code, but the README explains everything, so don't worry too much. You go to this versions button. May have many versions here. I've just got a single one. You can share, copy the site link. Now you come back to Excel, and in your environment, edit the environment, hit the drop down, hit Add Pyscript App, paste the link in here. Okay, save the changes. This is now importing the code that I just showed you from pyscript.com. It's rerunning the imports and definitions, reloading the environment. Okay, it's ready. Now in imports and definitions, go back to the Pyscript page because I don't remember everything. In imports and definitions, I need these 2 lines of code. So what these 2 lines of code are going to do is, first of all, from that library, which is the one that we just added to the environment, we're going to import that register UDFs function. Again, as a reminder, register UDFs function is this thing here. Inside register UDFs are all of my UDFs. This example is just one. It's this UDF technical analysis. So I'm importing this function from this library into Anaconda Code. And then I am running register UDFs. I'm passing into it UDF. Now UDF is a special function that enables this, but only exists in Anaconda Code. So you can't import UDF in your Pyscript project. This is the way that it works. We import a function to register the UDFs, and then we run it by passing UDF into that function. It will then register that technical analysis dashboard. It's better if I just show you. So I run that, check the logs, nothing wrong. Back in the website, I've got a formula which will help us see how it works. Here's my formula. Get some stock history from Microsoft. Back to Excel, new sheet. And I'm going to paste my formula in here. That's going to return some stock history. And over here, we're going to see we're going to merge some cells. Sorry, Carlos. Merge some cells, and I'm going to use the technical analysis function on this data. In fact, it's just this, isn't it? Code in that function creates a chart. That's what it does. So I hope you see how powerful this is, but with a normal Excel function, you cannot return a chart. With a Python Excel function, you can create and return a chart. So you're not even using Python code to call this, just calling a spreadsheet function and giving it some data, and it is giving you this. Now I can change my spreadsheet function. I can parameterize this. Let's say AAPL for Apple. We can change it. And now we've got a technical analysis dashboard for Apple instead of Microsoft. So we could put a data validation dropdown for the stock symbol. This sheet can now be fully configurable by the user. You can select a different ticker. You can change, maybe configure and parameterize the date ranges. And because this triggers every time this updates, we now have an updatable financial analysis of that symbol. So before I go on to the next example, let me ask for questions. Any questions? Yes, you can absolutely rewrite that function.
I do. Yeah, this is amazing. Wow. I did saw this individual post on LinkedIn, Owen, that you did, I think separate on the separate charts, I think.
Yeah.
But this is amazing. So you're pretty much creating a formula chart, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, even a dashboard, if you want to, if you will.
Yeah.
You have 4 charts here in one go. Wow. Yeah, no questions. I'm just mind blown. Yeah, you're doing great. Just in case. Yeah.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. So the complexity of what you return with your UDF is really limited by how much time you want to spend on developing it. And with AI, you don't have to spend much time. I iterated on the look and feel of this chart with ChatGPT for a little while. You know, it never gets it right first time, but I iterated on it and I got to a place where I thought, yeah, that's okay. And I just put it into my Pyscript app, and now it's always there when I need it. And this particular example, with all of the stuff that I've just shown you, is fully available to you to browse and use. If you want to do more, if you want to modify all of this, you will be able to go to one of these links and it will give you an option to clone it. That will clone it into your own environment, and then you'll have your own Python file that you can edit in the way that you want. I'm just going to show you one more example. Yes, it's available in the tutorial format. When you open this project, there's a README, and you can just go through the README, explain all of this stuff. I'm going to give you one more example, which is about SQL functions, which is kind of fun for me because I'm a bit of a SQL nerd. Also,
I forgot to say kudos to Jim, right? He created this Pyscript, or he set it up. It's amazing.
Well, he created Anaconda Code. But he uses Pyodide and Pyscript, and then there's a team. There's a team at Anaconda who maintain this service.
But yes, getting it all connected to register user-defined functions was a fun challenge, but I'm glad it works.
Yeah, it's really. Yeah, I mean, I love this stuff, really. Let me show you this. Let me show you these SQL functions, because this to me is just. This is for some people, this is like the antithesis of what you should do in Excel. But to me, just the fact that you can do it is useful. And I think a lot of SQL developers just avoid Excel like the plague. You know, that's their loss. But I'm hoping that something like this might spark an idea that say, hey, it doesn't have to be that bad. You don't have to be that scared of it. So I'm going to import this SQL functions here, same way. And just for reference, I've created my register UDFs function, and within register UDFs, I'm creating a shared connection to a SQLite database. And then each of these functions inside register UDFs got three functions: SQL.create, which will take a spreadsheet range and convert it into a SQL table in this SQLite database. I've got create view, which will take a query definition and create a view from it. And then I've got SQL.select, which will query any of the tables in the database. So when I run register UDFs, it will register these three user-defined functions at once, and it will create this SQLite database in Excel with a shared connection, which are then used by these functions. Okay, so let me go back to my Excel file. I'm just going to clean up some of this just so that we don't get confused. This is the reason why I've got all these tables in here, because I wanted to show off this SQL thing. Okay, so we're coming to the environment, and I'm editing it, and I'm adding a Pyscript app. And these are my SQL functions. By saving that, I'm now making that library available in my imports and definitions. And I've got my code for importing and registering the functions. And oh, that's interesting. There might be a conflict. Yeah, I might have to change that because I've got two Pyscript apps.
If you run them one after another, Owen, it'll be fine. It'll just reuse that name.
Oh, like that?
Yep.
Okay. So these two lines are registering that technical analysis dashboard. This one is then importing register UDFs, and that name is now overwriting this name. So when I run it here, it's registering those three SQL functions. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so very simple example. SQL.create, and the data is going to be why when I press Control A, it should select everything, but it doesn't. The data is going to be all of this. I'm going to call it just sales in my database. Okay, so doing so is running that SQL.create code, which is essentially taking the 65,000 rows and registering them as a table in the SQL database that sits in the memory in your Excel file. And now I can use SQL.select, say select year of, say, ship date. You have any canned SQL to go here. Distinct year of ship date from sales. Case sensitive, is it? Shouldn't be. Okay, forget that then. Do have some canned SQL somewhere. Let me do dim customer as well. I'm going to create a SQL table from this. So that's created that, and now I've got a query here, which will go in here. Like this. So this is now using a SQL syntax. This is a SQL query. Because it's using this SQLite database, is not just, oh, we've got a database in Excel. We actually do have a SQL database in Excel. So we can use actual SQL queries passed into this SQL.select function to query the tables that I've loaded into the database. So why would we do this? We can use Power Query for this, and we can use all kinds of other things to do this kind of thing. But hey, if you're not familiar with Power Query, or if you don't want to write Python code to do this kind of thing, and you've got some tables you want to join, you want to use some SQL syntax, you want to use window functions, all of that great stuff, this is one way that you can do that. Not only that, we very quickly. By the way, I'm not looking at the chat at the moment, so if questions are coming up, I apologize, I will answer them. Just going to create a few more tables just to show you how something else works. This is product category. This is product, which is a big one. Yeah, so I found that I was writing queries to join all of these tables together, but the design of this data warehouse, splitting out product category and product subcategory is kind of tedious if you have to do it over and over again. And so that's what prompted me to create this create view function. So in the create view, I just pass a SQL statement, which is basically doing the joins. It will create a view named whatever I pass into the first parameter. So by doing that, I can now use select star from details. Okay, so that's now returning the joined versions of those three tables that are defined in this view. Okay, enough of me typing around and ignoring the chat. Let's go back and ask anybody if they've got any questions.
Owen, one thing I'm right now I have this meeting or these Teams call on one monitor and then my Excel on the other one. So you're right now on the code side of things, but what would be what would be a use case to have code and the toolbox pane also at the same time?
If you're using the assistant to help you with your code.
Oh, okay. So it would, if you go just directly to code, you wouldn't need the assistant pretty much.
Well, the assistant is not built into Anaconda Code at the moment. So if you want if you want the assistant to help you write Python, you would need to have both panes open or toolbox open to open the assistant and then copy and paste into Anaconda Code.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was my bit of my confusion. Yeah. Okay. It's all clear now.
Thanks. Dharmesh.
Hi, this is great. Thank you. It's just changed the way I'm planning to use or planning to push data analysis within the firm I work in. The question I've got is not on what's there and any limitations, etc. My question is if we wanted to go through and introduce this to a wider audience, is there kind of like training, or is there kind of like things that we could do to encourage people in our team to do this? I've already introduced it to a bunch of Ukrainians and they're already excited about it. It's this thing about trying to get them to understand these key examples that you've shown us now, but not in this way, but more sort of specifically to do with the way that you're getting the data in, the things that you could potentially do, and then obviously this stuff that you produced just now using Pyscript to bring in additional functions, which is insane. to be able to do things in this way can change and really make people's lives a little bit more simpler, easier, because you're sharing this across multiple groups of people. So that's the bit.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're looking for a training, presentation, webinar, like specifically for your company, you can just reach out to me and we can try to organize something, and I can come and present to your company. It is my job as the PM is to increase adoption of the product. And if you have any specific questions about security, about how it works, about, you know, what happens when you share with someone who doesn't have Anaconda Toolbox, security of Pyscript.com, like the examples that I've shown you in Pyscript are public facing, but you can make them private as well. And
yeah,
Anaconda has this concept of organizations and sharing between users in the same organizations.
It's the AI bit of nervousness that even, you know, my firm's got into this kind of lockdown of everything you possibly can do, you know, and you're sort of hamstring to do anything differently. But it's kind of this bit I'm trying to sort of get them to understand that we don't need to be afraid. We just need to understand what we can and should do and how we can bring that in. So it's that security bit is always going to be important.
Absolutely. And I actually, this reminds me that I meant to ask this group today as an opportunity for me to ask a question. Jim and I and the rest of the team have been discussing for some while whether there would be any value in us separating Anaconda Toolbox and Anaconda Code from one another. And whether the concerns around that assistant be ameliorated if Anaconda Code existed separately without the assistant.
I could tell you now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and very much so. The moment I tell the firm that, oh, there's an AI assistant in there, the panic will be palpable.
Okay.
And the thing is, if you've got the ability to bring them in separately or bring them in together, if that's the choice that people want to make, I think that would be a wise thing to do, in my opinion.
Okay. The other thing that we're considering is you currently need to log in to Anaconda Toolbox. And the principal reason, as I mentioned at the beginning, the principal reason is because we have usage limits on the assistant. And those usage limits are necessary because we had many, many thousands of people with unlimited usage of the assistant, and that's going to cost somebody something. And it would probably be us. So we need to have those limits, and we need to have a login for the assistant. Another thing we are considering is removing the login requirement for Anaconda Code only, which is to say you would be able to load the Toolbox add-in and you would be able to use Anaconda Code without logging in. Now, our goal is to get as many users as possible and give them value, but you would still need to log in to use the assistant.
Do you know it's about it's about UX, right? It's how a person experiences something. If you've got the option of two things and you can only use one thing and you can't use the other thing without doing something else, it just feels a little bit off.
Yes.
It's almost like blocking someone's access to something. Whereas if you give them the option of going, well, you can download this and use it, but there's an additional bit of value, but you need to do this, download that separately if you wish to. I think it's just, you don't want to make people feel like they're missing out on something when you don't, you know, it sort of like leaves a bit of a bad taste in someone's mouth. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like,
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, but it's a choice you guys have to make. But if you've got the ability to offer combined or separated packages, for instance, of sort of like installing the add-in or doing whatever you need to do, then I don't know if that's too much trouble for you guys to sort of put together. It's kind of like it gives. I mean, for someone like me, I'm already going, when I'm going into work, I'm only talking to about 5 or 6 people about this. And those, because I know that they have a responsible attitude, but the moment they see the assistance bit, I can turn around and say that, you know, they do panic and they don't do it. it's the code bit for me is amazing. It's the fact that you've got R, because most of our data science and all the work that we do is based on R. Is that's the fact that you've got R is for me is going to be kind of like a game changer of going, hey, you can use both R and Python. It's just going to make your world different.
Yeah. This actually reminds me. No, you're not talking too much. No, it's actually super helpful feedback. Because we've been going back and forth on this idea of separating them. It is some work to do that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We need to be careful about how we prioritize our work. But we also see that the majority of the use that we get is, people are interested in Anaconda Code. And I think you have options for Python and Excel. You have Python and Excel, you have Excel Wings, you have Pixel, you have...
Oh, did he break?
Oh, did we break?
Oh, no, did we break? The camera's really bad.
I think we're still here. We
He
lost
broke.
Owen. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay.
You lost me?
Oh, you're back
think
now. You froze for a bit.
I think it's the.
I was just
R
trying to
coming
explain
in.
that, like,
Yeah.
I was trying to explain that R is really, that Anaconda Code is really the only way to run R in Excel, directly in Excel. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And I just remembered I did want to quickly show you this example. This is a ggplot2 chart. In fact, there's lots of charts in this cell. It's quite a long script. I had ChatGPT help me write it. But just to show some of the power, you can set up these drop downs, which can then switch the chart that you're looking at. Let's say that's histogram of city MPG. Let's change it to manufacturer. I want to change the palette. So if you want to use R for visualization, for any kind of like modeling, statistics, or anything like that, and you don't want to develop a Shiny application, or you don't want to develop a special website for it, Excel is quite an easy way to do that. And now R in Excel is just, I think it makes it very, very easy.
Oh, and I'm just gonna. I've got my son sitting here because we're sort of like working at Whereton. He's in uni at the current moment. He's just been playing with R and R Shiny, and he just turned around and said, "Oh my God, this would have been so much more easier." Because it's got the data in Excel. I'm going to Salo at end of this month, and I'm speaking to a bunch of PhDs to talk about certain things, and this is something I'm going to bring up to them as well, because I think it's just such. I've been so as soon as I heard about this, I just got so excited, because although we've been going all the way to these big BI tools and doing all the things that we want in my workplace, 99% of the time, whenever we give anyone and we all know this, we give them beautiful dashboards with amazing stuff. Well, let's be practical. The person's just going to download that data on a piece of Excel and use it. So if we can then turn their world around and provide them with something in the space that they are comfortable with, and utilize the stuff that they potentially would never have used, govern it by this kind of like, making sure you share that code, or you share the kind of like structure that you want to provide them, the workflow that you want to provide them. It will just change it. I mean, I think it would do the same amount for university students as well.
Yeah, I think we are. I'm very hopeful that this will be incredibly valuable to particularly academic researchers and university students, but I think it has a lot of value in business as well.
Yeah.
I am available and willing to come and talk to whoever you want me to talk to about, if you need extra context, or if you need some more detail, or someone to bounce questions of.
And I think I will do in a couple of weeks, sort of like reach out to sort of see if we can arrange something, because it would be a valuable tool. But I might be sort of like trying to hunt down a couple of the senior leaders to sort of like attend the session. So it's going to be an interesting one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And we are actually we want to build things that enterprises are comfortable with as well. So if your senior leaders have concerns about Assistant or other parts of the add-in, or they think there are missing features, and we want to hear about it. And
okay. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just check my had a little agenda at the bottom. Done all those things. Yeah, I think
Unbelievable.
That's it for the presentation.
Amazing.
If anyone's got any other questions they would like to ask, have them now. you've got any requests, I'd like to hear about it.
I think Owen, just maybe another I mean, this is a small request, but a future presentation or maybe more on graphics or like plots, because I was when I started with Python and Excel, and I remember the days when it came out, it was big news and everything. And I'm talking about Python and Excel.
Yep.
Just starting to get the aesthetics of the graphics to be more polished. It was just I was seeing that the code was getting longer and longer and more intricate. And then I just suddenly became, I just was getting too enthused, but then I was like, well, this is just living on the spreadsheet. If I wanted to share with somebody else, or maybe somebody else taking advantage, just didn't know how to. Maybe was one of the reasons I stopped or got, and also I didn't know what was the pricing program of Python and Excel. That also made me wonder, I may be an enthusiast, but maybe my clients or maybe other colleagues wouldn't be adopted because they probably will stop at the point of comparing. Well, why would I pay when Python is free, right? That's always been one that has, in discussion with others, has always been something that always comes up. So I just wanted to,
I think it's the
point that
managed
out.
service. You're paying for the compute, really, the managed service.
Yeah.
Not the language itself. But on that subject of visualizations, a quick foray into the toolbox, visualize with Python button. If you're concerned about learning Python visualizations, this is a great place to get started. You can click here and let's have a bar chart, and I'm going to select my data. And I mean, that's the simplest way to do it. You don't need to change anything else necessarily. Oh, I've done something wrong.
Oh no, totally. I was playing around. I made the scatter plot matrix I sent you on a comment, and I did it in an instant. So something that take me on Excel because being so hacky, I mean, it's not even sometimes encouraged. But with this, it was awesome. It's just that if you want to work on the aesthetics, the code starts to get more. You need to just put more line of code. At the time, I think I wasn't using ChatGPT, to be honest. I was just searching on Stack Overflow. What will be the piece of line that will edit this element on the chart, and I will just learn it and then go back and then Excel and add it to the formula and everything. But it was time consuming. Now with this, it's a great start. So kudos to you and Jim and the whole team. So yeah.
Yeah. This one, the Viz Builder, is actually spent most of Q3 of last year working on it.
Last year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly 1 month? Because
No, it took more than a month.
Okay. You've been preaching about it. It's just maybe
Yeah.
sometimes it can take years maybe to somebody then for the people to realize the potential.
So it's kind of just point and click and create Python charts. It can both create useful charts for you, but also serve as quite a useful learning tool. So this is injected. Let's use Anaconda code. That's why. This is created Python code in cell AE12 using the Viz Builder. And this is the code that it's created just by a few clicks. So you can now say, okay, well, I know what I clicked and I know how I did it, and this is what it's created. So now I know that if I want a bar plot from Seaborn, these are the parameters that I need for a basic bar plot. And if I want to turn off the borders, I need to turn off the spines. And if I want to set the labels, I use X label and Y label and so on and so forth. So that's the most basic bar plot you could imagine, but there are much more powerful charts in there. Need to get distracted by that. Aditya, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah. One thing I was really testing for last 2 days was like ranking system in Excel. So if you are going to use like a rank.average function on in Excel file, and the data is around like 100k rows, Excel will just be killed. Okay, I was like just sitting on 1% computing stuff for 10 minutes, and it eventually gave up. But the same thing when I did with Python in Excel, it gave me answer in just 2 seconds, and I was really amazed. So what I mean to say is, if I just can understand more about R language or SQL language, and I can use Anaconda tool to implement those ideas inside my Excel only, that will be just amazing, right? That's what I'm thinking right now. I'm like literally amazed the way it can offer me lots of opportunities now.
Yeah, so in that particular example, what I would be doing if I were you is creating a Python UDF of ranking using Python. So then you're not limited by the compute power of Excel. You can really just use Python. It's very efficient to do the ranking. And you can still call it with a spreadsheet function. And of course, because it's a spreadsheet function, it can then be embedded in let formulas. It can be iterated over with map or scan or reduce or any of that good stuff. You know, it's only limited by your imagination and your memory in your computer.
Exactly. The only thing is that wherever I need to go and implement that function, I need to install this add-in, right? So that's only a big hassle. And right now, because of more competition stuff, I wasn't using it lately because I was just restricting myself to Python in Excel so that I can use them for Excel competitions. But now I feel like, yeah, I need to really test it, because if Brian is going to tell more about AI stuff in Excel, how can I bring all these stuff in Excel? Then yeah, it is going to be really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Brian is doing with AI is there's a lot we can all learn about that, I think, including myself. Anybody else got any questions? I'm conscious that we have been talking for an hour and a half. I'm so glad that everybody has stuck around this long, to be honest.
Owen,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where would you point somebody that's very new to this as a way to get started in a serious and meaningful way?
You mean with Anaconda Code or with Python or with R or all three?
So I have some familiarity in with R. Just learning the Python interface with Excel. I'm fairly proficient with Excel. Besides this, now I feel like an infant. So how would you recommend taking more serious steps to begin to integrate these different tools in a meaningful way for somebody that's very novice?
Yes, for sure. It's a good question. We don't have any formal training on Anaconda Code at the moment. However, my own experience with tools like this is the best way to learn is to get started and just open it and try using it. The documentation that we have on the website is quite comprehensive and explains all of the stuff that I've explained today about link status and output mode and user-defined functions. It's all on the documentation page. I'll get a link in a moment. And then
posting links as well to different things that I think answer the question. So
okay, yeah, and I happen to know that ChatGPT is quite good with Anaconda Code at the moment. And I know this because I talk to ChatGPT quite a lot, from just personally, and it knows that I use Anaconda Code a lot. It doesn't know what my involvement is with Anaconda Code, but it recommends what I can do with it. So if you want to learn about Anaconda Code, you can just say that to ChatGPT and it will be able to explain quite a lot of this stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, so Jim makes good sense. Thank you.
Jim posted the documentation link there, and I'm going to continue posting on LinkedIn various examples of what can be done. Let me grab the Pyscript links of these projects.
Sure. If I recall, if I'm not recalling badly, I think I did saw somebody. I'm not sure if Dave Langer's still working with you guys with promoting Anaconda or no. Maybe I'm off.
I think from time to time he is, yeah. But I mean, he really works with somebody else, not with me personally.
Okay. But then I think there was a lady, Amanda. I think she mentioned maybe a couple of years ago, I saw a couple of posts of Anaconda School, maybe, or some like tutorial. Are they still up?
Anaconda Learning.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Just a moment. I seem to be pasting the same link over and over again. I don't know why it's not capturing it in my clipboard. Yeah, that second link is actually not the SQL functions, even though it says it is. So even though both of those links that I've just posted in the chat are the same, they say the same text, they're actually not the same link. But let me go to Anaconda Learning. Okay, so Anaconda Learning, when you create your account, free or otherwise, you will have access to either just the free courses or you'll have access to all of the courses. But the free courses, you can browse to see what's available. There are a few courses in here about Python and Excel. Also a bunch of courses about just Python. I thought there was a free one for Python and Excel. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Fix. Yes, so there are some courses. These are the Dave Langer ones. I think they're not on the free tier, unfortunately. They're on the starter tier. And then I did this one about data visualization with Python and Excel. But there's nothing here specifically about Anaconda Code, which is something that I hope to remedy.
Okay. Well, the future looks bright. So
yeah, just to reiterate, if you're in education, if you're in university education, you can get that education tier, which will give you access to the full catalog, including all the paid courses. So good. Sorry for talking over you, Carlos. My brain gets a bit. No,
it's okay. Yeah, I think the last suggestion will be just to maybe another session, just. And again, this is coming from, like, I'm just putting myself as a first-time user or first-time somebody who wants to get in. I think maybe more focused on charts, and then really jumping into a first line of code into make, and then several lines onto make, and then coming out with something fancy or something that is bespoke. And also maybe and the other thing is, like, you jumped around a couple of interfaces, which is fine with me. I mean, I can handle it. Again, being an advanced user and an enthusiast, but maybe from a newbie or a first timer, they might get intimidated and just maybe not, it will be hard to get them hooked, so maybe something easy, and then boom, advance, slowly.
Sure. Yep.
I mean, like a WYSIWYG, where it's just in the background. What do you mean?
I think maybe Carlos is giving me some great feedback about my presentation more than anything else. I was jumping around from place to place quite a lot because there was a lot that I wanted to show in this presentation. But it may be that I can do another session where we talk specifically about how to create, that technical analysis dashboard that I showed you earlier. There were several steps that I had to go through to create that. And I could do a 2-hour presentation just on creating that chart.
I would love that.
So education tier, just to answer Yasser's question, education tier, you sign up for it, and it gives you all of the benefits of the starter tier. The starter tier would otherwise be $15 per month. So if you have education tier, you're essentially getting $15 per month worth of stuff. Mailing list. I don't personally have a mailing list. You can subscribe to the Anaconda blog, which I put blog posts out about Anaconda Code sometimes. The most regular way that I communicate about Anaconda Code is on LinkedIn. So the best way is to connect with me there. Okay. Okay, I'm so glad to hear that you guys are enthusiastic about this. If you want to follow me, please go to my LinkedIn page and just connect or follow. I don't mind. I don't post on my blog as often as I want to. It's quite difficult. It's more difficult to post a blog post than it is to write on LinkedIn, which is maybe not a good thing. I'm really, really happy that you've been enthusiastic about it. I think there's a lot of value in this tool, and I hope you find a lot of value in it. We do have a feedback forum, which is accessible through the tool itself. You can go to community forums. If you have any questions, I monitor that forum every day. Both Jim and I monitor it every day, and we try to answer the questions as quickly as possible. And the benefit of putting them on the forums is, of course, that other people can read those answers after the fact. So let me stop the recording, and we will then